Really?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our April 2nd Local Agency Formation Commission of Santa Clara County. And this is an in-person meeting of the commission. Members of the public may also attend and participate in this meeting by virtual teleconference using the login information provided on the meeting agenda. Santa Clara LAFCO strongly denounces hate speech and does not tolerate disruptive behavior in our meetings. We pride ourselves on the rich diversity of our residents, and we're committed to creating a culture of belonging where members of our diverse community feel included and safe. I ask that folks who make public comment adhere to this principle, and because this is considered a limited public forum, which means LAFCO can regulate the time, place, and manner of speech to prevent our meetings from being disrupted. This protects the rights of other speakers and ensures that LAFCO can accomplish its business in a reasonable, efficient manner. And so all public comments must relate to that agenda item. And if this directive is ignored following by warning by me, this speaker may be muted. So LAFCO cannot guarantee that the public's access to teleconferencing technology will be uninterrupted, and so please be patient with us. And unless required by the Brown Act, the meeting will continue despite technical difficulties for participants using the teleconferencing option. All right, so members of the public who are attending by virtual teleconference and wish to address the commission should use the raise hand feature. Those participating by phone should dial *9, and staff will call on you by name or by the last 4 digits of the phone number. And then, of course, written public comments will be distributed to the commission and posted to online agenda, but will not be read out loud. Alrighty, so we are going to call this meeting to order by having our clerk call roll.
Yes. Commissioner Bell. Sorry. Chairperson Arenas.
Here.
Vice Chair Kamei.
Here, and I am attending remotely.
Commissioner Bell. Here. Commissioner Lee.
Captain present?
Commissioner Trumbull. Here. Commissioner Turner.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Campos. Alternate Commissioner Chapman. Alternate Commissioner Young. Alternate Commissioner Hilton.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner O'Neill. We have a quorum, Madam Chair, with Commissioner Kamei attending remotely for just cause due to caregiving of immediate family member, and alternate Commissioner Chapman voting in place of Commissioner Kishimoto.
Thank you. And we are going to go to public comment next, and this is a portion of the meeting that provides an opportunity for members of the public to address the commission on matters not on the agenda, and provided that the subject matter is within the jurisdiction of the commission. No action may be taken on off-agenda items unless authorized by law, and speakers are limited to 3 minutes. All statements that require a response will be referred to staff for reply in writing. All righty, so we are going to go ahead and go to public comment.
There are no public there are no speakers from the public, Madam Chair? Oh, sorry. There's one speaker.
Perfect, we'll do 3 minutes
Okay,
for that.
I'm sorry, ma'am. They took it back.
All right, you know what? It's okay to take that back. That's 3 minutes more for our meeting. Oh, they're going back again? Okay. Well, you know what? We can go ahead and hear them if they're still there.
No.
No?
They,
Okay, and we don't have anybody in person, so we'll go ahead and move on unless you indicate that they're coming back on. So we're going to move on to item 3, and this is approving consent calendar.
I would like to go ahead and move to approve the consent calendar.
Perfect.
Second.
We did have a second in-person, Commissioner Kamei. Go ahead and clerk, if you can please
So-
call roll on this.
Commissioner Bell? Commissioner Kamei?
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman?
Aye.
Commissioner Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Trumbull?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Chairperson Arenas?
Yes.
7 votes in support, Madam Chair.
Perfect. We're just moving along, and this is item number 4. This is approving minutes of February 5th. This is our last LAFCO meeting, and I'm hoping we can have that one's part of a consent. Excuse me, so sorry about that. All right, so we are going to move into item number 5. This is our public hearing. This is South Santa Clara County Fire Protection District Dissolution and Santa Clara County Central Fire Protection Annexation Sphere of Influence Amendment. This is an application by Santa Clara County Central Fire Protection District and the South Santa Clara Fire Protection District for dissolution, as I mentioned before. And do we have a presentation?
Do a brief staff report. We've prepared a detailed staff report, including multiple attachments, so I'll keep this brief, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
The item before you is a joint application from the Santa Clara County Central Fire Protection District and the South Santa Clara County Fire Protection District. This reorganization application proposes the dissolution of South County Fire and the concurrent annexation of its territory into Central Fire, as well as an amendment to Central Fire's sphere of influence. The stated purpose of this reorganization is to address South County Fire's long-standing structural operating deficit while allowing for a coordinated, county-wide approach to fire protection services. Because this reorganization was initiated by substantially similar resolutions from both the districts, state law mandates that LAFCO approve or conditionally approve the proposal. This map that you see illustrates the two districts. South County Fire is in green and Central Fire is in the gold color. Both Central Fire and South County Fire are dependent districts governed by the County Board of Supervisors. And currently, South County Fire contracts with CAL FIRE for fire protection services, and that contract is set to expire on June 30th of this year. To ensure that there is no gap in fire and emergency medical services, the county has requested that this reorganization take effect on July 1st. Upon reorganization, Central Fire will assume responsibility for providing services within the former South County Fire District, and CAL FIRE will continue to carry out its mission of providing wildfire suppression on state responsibility lands during the declared fire season each year. So in terms of the LAFCO process, following LAFCO's approval after today's hearing, a protest proceeding must be held, during which landowners and registered voters in the South County Fire District may submit written protests. Staff will issue a 21-day public hearing notice for the protest hearing with instructions on how to submit a valid written protest. After the protest hearing, staff will assess the level of protest received, and then depending on the level of protest, this proposal may proceed as approved, it may require an election or be terminated. If approved, the reorganization will become effective when the certificate of completion is recorded with the county recorder or on July 1st of 2025, whichever is later. As required, Central Fire has submitted a plan for providing services to the annexed area, which is included in Attachment E of the staff report, and it's summarized also in the staff report. This plan outlines how Central Fire intends to maintain and enhance fire protection and emergency response in the area. While the cost of providing the services will be higher than what South County Fire currently incurs, Central Fire has the financial stability and reserves to absorb these costs for the next few years, during which time Central Fire and the county plan to collaborate on a long-term financial strategy to balance revenues and expenditures across the expanded district. As noted in the application, South County Fire is facing significant financial challenges. By the end of this fiscal year, the district is projected to have a $1.3 million deficit, which it expects to cover using its reserves. In fiscal year 2026, this deficit is expected to grow to $4 million, not including the funding required for necessary capital improvements. The county anticipates contributing $1.5 million from its general fund to help close this gap, with South County Fire continuing to rely on its reserves. This is not a sustainable financial model. Without this reorganization, South County Fire would face difficult choices, including reducing fire and emergency medical response services, which would negatively impact public safety. So given these challenges, the proposed reorganization presents a viable and necessary solution to ensure the continued delivery of fire protection and emergency services. And also given that LAFCO is required by statute to approve or conditionally approve the proposal under Government Code 56853, staff recommends approval of the sphere amendment and reorganization as outlined in LAFCO Resolution Number 2025-01. We have received several comment letters from affected agencies, including from the County of Santa Clara, CAL FIRE, and the cities of Morgan Hill and Gilroy. Additionally, we've received letters from members of the South County Fire Board of Commissioners. We've also heard from many members of the public with letters both in opposition as well as in support of the proposed reorganization. I want to say that all letters received to date have been provided to the Commission in the meeting packet or as supplemental materials, and they're also available on the LAFCO website. And then lastly, I'd like to acknowledge that we have a number of people here. We have the County Executive, James Williams, who's present on behalf of the two districts and is available to address Commissioners' questions. Also in attendance are Central Fire Chief Kurt Kaw and her staff, CAL FIRE Unit Chief Hess and his staff, and several members of the 7-member Board of Commissioners from South County Fire. Thank you all for your attendance. With that, I think I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Perfect. And before I go to my colleagues, or actually just to the commissioner conversation, I will take public comment, and we will begin with Stephen Chappelle. If you can come to the center here, and in that kind of pulpit-looking area over on that side, yes. The microphone is built in, so if you begin to speak, the microphone will pick up your voice, I promise you. It doesn't look like it, but it will.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners and staff. I appear today as a lifelong resident of Santa Clara County and for the last quarter century in the city of Morgan Hill. I am opposing and respectfully asking that you do not approve any actions regarding the sphere of influence amendment or dissolution of South County Fire or annexation to County Central Fire. My cause for this objection in asking you to not approve any actions is simple. This is a repeat of County Central Fire attempting a land and money grab from South County. Thankfully, the last time, Supervisors Wasserman and Simidian shut it down. You should ask yourself, why are we here again? Why is County Central Fire attempting this again under the new boogeyman of a budget? Next, the bureaucratic math of 1 + 1 = 7, or the public being told that it equals 4 makes no fiscal sense. The facts are clear and simple based on structural costs. It will cost taxpayers 3 to 5x what we pay now if County Fire takes over South County Fire District versus what CAL FIRE costs today. These long-run cost expansions have not been vetted thoroughly, not only by the district supervisors or by LAFCO, and represent a real risk to the taxpayers who will get less while paying more. And last, we already have the best-of-breed service with CAL FIRE servicing South County area for our domain and terrain, which is far superior in capabilities of apparatus, wildfire land protection, and statewide staff, many multiples over County Fire. It simply makes no sense to remove them from any area we need the rapid and expertise in as our first responder, not mutual aid. Removing any part of CAL FIRE as a first responder adds time, destruction, and loss of life to all residents of South County. Therefore, I'm requesting you say no to these action items and push back the politics over the long attempts by County Fire to take over. There is no reason to take this action when instead you should be laser focused on what remedies are needed to fix any budget deficit versus wholesaling out our first responders at CAL FIRE. Another option available to you is to permanently install CAL FIRE as the South County Fire District choice and relinquish to the state of California and CAL FIRE SCU, who have saved South County residents more than once during large destructive fires in the past. That would be the most fiscally responsible act that you could actually consider. Don't make the same mistakes we've learned from the devastating fires in Southern California. It's time for your job to ensure and endure life safety is first and foremost. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next is Christina Turner.
Good afternoon. My name is Christina Turner, and I'm the city manager for Morgan Hill, and I've raised my family in South County and been there almost 25 years. I want to share that Morgan Hill is committed to ensuring the highest level of safety and emergency response for our residents, and we have been very well served by CAL FIRE. As outlined in our letter of concern, I want to highlight 4 critical issues that demand attention: transparency, fiscal impacts, emergency response, and the future of the company 70 volunteer program. And I also want to make sure that you've seen the letters by the City of Gilroy, as well as from Chief Jake Hess representing CAL FIRE. In terms of lack of transparency and collaborations, decisions of this magnitude that directly affect emergency response, community safety, and interagency cooperation must be made with full transparency and meaningful stakeholder engagement. Unfortunately, the City of Morgan Hill was not informed before this proposal was introduced, despite regular meetings with the county. Additionally, CAL FIRE was excluded from the county's fire plan discussions, raising serious concerns about the decision-making process. As of today, CAL FIRE has not yet received a notice terminating its services, nor has it been asked to continue providing fire protection past the current service agreement expiration on June of this year. This lack of coordination is concerning and does not reflect the collaborative approach we have come to expect in decisions that impact public safety. Fiscal implications and cost-sharing concerns. The county has suggested that dissolving the existing district and annexing its service area into the Central Fire District will resolve financial challenges. However, it is clear that this change will significantly increase fire costs due to Central Fire's higher personnel expenses. While the county has indicated that these costs will be subsidized, there will be no concrete assurance that financial burdens will not be placed on the City of Morgan Hill. We have serious concerns about the future of our cost-sharing agreement for Engine 67. Under our current agreement, Morgan Hill and the Fire District jointly staff and fund Engine 67 at an affordable rate. If costs rise, this agreement may become financially unfeasible for Morgan Hill, jeopardizing our ability to maintain existing fire services. Yet, we have not been engaged in any discussions on how this transition will be managed, nor have we received notice on the location being considered for the northern station to house Engine 67 under the new fire service structure. Discussions on permitting and zoning must occur before any financial decision. While this has been described as a change in districts and not a contracting change, I must ask why the county hasn't given serious consideration to an RFP that would consider other providers, and especially ones such as CAL FIRE that can provide quality services at a much lower cost. Impacts on emergency response and auto aid. Our system relies heavily on automatic aid agreements, and so we need to have discussions on those. And then lastly, the future of Company 70. I recommend you have discussions on that. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to move on to the next speaker, and that's Brandon Barrett. Please come. And after that, we'll have Alan Abstain.
Good afternoon, honorable members of LAFCO. My name is Brandon Barrett. I'm a proud member of CAL FIRE Local 2881, serving as the chapter director. For over 40 years, CAL FIRE has been the backbone of fire protection in South Santa Clara County. We know the terrain, we know the risk, and more importantly, we know the people. We've stood shoulder to shoulder with local agencies fighting wildfires, evacuating families, saving homes. We're not just a state agency, we're neighbors. And now all of that is in jeopardy. Earlier this year, the Board of Supervisors rushed through a decision to terminate its contract with CAL FIRE. Their reasoning, supposed cost savings. But the truth is, this plan will cost taxpayers more and deliver less. Less coverage, slower response times, and fewer firefighters when it matters most. Let me be clear, this plan is not ready. It was developed with no formal input from CAL FIRE, no coordination with cities like Morgan Hill that are directly affected, and on a highly rushed timeline for a decision of this magnitude. Yet LAFCO is now being asked to finalize this change, to permanently hand off fire service to an underfunded, underprepared district that doesn't have the stations, engines, or staffing to do the job. They're assuming, or they are assuming CAL FIRE will continue leading them, our people, our equipment, and our infrastructure. But we've made it crystal clear we haven't agreed to that. And without those resources, this system collapses. There's no plan B. CAL FIRE Local 281 is firefighters. We don't play politics. We show up when the alarm rings, and we're sounding the alarm now. LAFCO has a responsibility to protect the public, not just rubber stamp a fantasy. This isn't just bad policy, it's dangerous. It puts lives, homes, and entire communities at risk. So today, on behalf of every firefighter who has risked their life for this county, I'm asking LAFCO to hit pause, demand a real plan, one with agreements, funding, and full public view. Because when the stakes are this high, you don't gamble with public safety, you protect what's working. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll go to, and I apologize if I read the last name incorrectly, Alan Abstein or Abstu?
Thank you. My name is Alan Epstein, and I've lived in the county for over 35 years. I'll start off by saying the conclusion. I'm not in favor of this, and this is a bad decision. This is a matter about money, and you've turned it into an operational issue. And this is a matter that the supervisors caused. They've caused it over many, many years. And the supervisors are the only one that can fix the problem, but they're fixing it the wrong way. They're fixing it by making it an operational problem, not a financial problem. And rather than address the money problem, they're putting these two fire departments at each other's throats. The annexation is unnecessary. All the actions that are listed that the supervisors are going to take to fix the physical problem, they have the authority to take now. So this is really just a shell game. They're going to take a financial problem that exists in one district, and now they're going to push it into another district. Well, that doesn't solve any long-term problems. As people have pointed out, this department, which I have great respect for and do an outstanding job, costs a lot more than that department over there to do the same work. So what you're doing is making the problem worse, not making the problem better. The real solution to this problem is for this $11 billion county with 22,000 employees and 2 million residents to properly allocate the funds to the South County Fire District. Well, what funds am I talking about? Well, since 1993, a 0.5% sales tax, the public safety sales tax, has come to this county. This year, $275 million will come to this county for public safety sales tax. Not one dime is given to the fire departments. Yet, when the voters in this county voted for the public safety sales tax, there was a raging fire going on in San Diego, and they were told the money would go to help fight fires. None of the money is going to help fight fires. Second problem is the Williamson Act. 42% of the properties in South County Fire District are under the Williamson Act. Well, the Williamson Act depresses the amount of tax revenue. Well, who's responsible for the Williamson Act? The county's responsible. I'm not suggesting we get rid of the Williamson Act, but why should it be the responsibility of the people in the 300,000 people in the north to take responsibility for the 2 million people who want to have a Williamson Act in the South? If it's important to the county, then the county should fund it. I sent you a note about this, and I'll just touch the high points of a couple other things. You can take these actions now.
Thank you, sir. If you happen to have your comments in written form, you can submit them to the clerk, please. Thank you. And next we have Sharon Luna.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am a resident of San Martin, and I'm also involved with the San Martin Neighborhood Association. This has been going on for a long time. In 2018, I was starting to get involved with SMNA, and there was a meeting that we were there for the airport. However, it came where the firefighters situation came up, and we were shocked. We didn't know anything about it. And at that time, Los Altos Hills Fire District was involved. For some reason, and I'm not understanding why they're not involved in this proposal. It's not to say, I'm sitting here in the middle because we value our firefighters, and the gentleman had stated, we're pitting firefighters against each other, and that's not the point of what we should be doing. CAL FIRE has been excellent in San Martin, no complaints. If I had complaints, it would be true support to try something different. However, you can't complain in regard to something that's working. When I listen to the speakers, I'm thinking, wow, the cost is so minute. When you look at 1 million over budget, 4 million, you know, those figures compared to when I attend Board of Supervisors meetings, what we pay to cover homelessness, to cover, you know, all different types of projects, it's minute. That's what I get told when I'm presenting information. Well, it's a very minute portion of the budget. It's not to say I have to trust that you all and the Board of Supervisors are going to make the right decision. What I'd like to state is that we fought hard to have a meeting in the first place. On February 20th, we had a town hall meeting in San Martin, and thank you, Supervisor Rennes, for getting that together. We did have Mr. Williams, and we had the CAL FIRE chief, and I'm sorry I'm not going to blow her name, but you know, it was informational and it was productive. And I see my neighbors, Morgan Hill and Gilroy, not having that opportunity. And when I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, why hasn't, you know, community outreach gone for everyone? We as citizens have that right. And the last thing is when Supervisor Arenas said, change, we fear change. Well, yes, when something is working right, why do you want to change it? But we're going to try and embrace whatever decision is made here. But I want you to think about change. When something's working, why blow it? Why change? Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask our clerk, Emmanuel, if there is anybody online.
There is none, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. And so I'm going to ask at this point, I think there is an opportunity for the applicant to speak. And I think the time frame is up to 10 minutes, is that correct? Okay, so I'm going to ask Mr. Williams if he can come and speak. And you have up to 10 minutes, sir.
Good afternoon. It's weird. It's been more than 10 years since I've spoken in these chambers from this side of the dais. But good afternoon. My name is James Williams. I'm the county executive, and I'm very pleased to be here in front of the commission on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, which unanimously sitting as the Board of Directors for the Santa Clara County Central Fire Protection District and the Santa Clara County South Santa Clara County Fire Protection District have adopted resolutions requesting this reorganization. As some of you may know, this is a conversation that's actually been happening for decades. And the reason, as outlined in prior LAFCO studies going back to at least 2010, and something that I'm personally familiar with as well when I was the deputy county executive over a decade ago working with our fire districts here in this county, is that we have a significant structural issue regarding the South County Fire Protection District. And that structural issue has to do with the fact that these separate legal entities, and I think it's important to note that the fire districts are separate legal entities from the county government organization itself with separate responsibilities, separate duties, separate funding streams, meaning that these fire districts are almost exclusively funded by their own separate share of that base 1% property tax under Prop 13. They get their own separate share of property tax, and that is overwhelmingly the funding source for each of the fire districts in our county for their ongoing operations. And the challenge for our South County Fire Protection District is that the rate of cost increases over the years has exceeded the property tax revenue growth such that we have a structural deficit. And because we have a district in the south part of our county that has operated very leanly for a number of years, we're not in a situation where, in good conscience, we can reduce the level of service for South County without significant impacts on the availability and provision of fire and emergency response to that part of our community. That's why I'm really excited that in front of LAFCO today, you have this item which actually brings forward an ongoing structural solution to deal with that difficult challenge. And that structural solution involves the consolidation of the central and south districts, and thereby allows quite the opposite of what one speaker noted. It actually allows the transfer of resources and sharing of resources from the existing Central Fire District into the southern part of our county, which promotes core values that the county has associated with equity considerations, ensuring sharing of resources, and long-term fiscal solvency for the provision of fire and emergency services to our residents in South County. We have a number of staff here from the Central Fire District, and I want to thank the chief and her entire team. They're obviously here available to answer questions that the commission may have, but I want to thank them because they've worked very diligently on a very compressed time frame to put together an operational plan to ensure continuity of services. We also have staff from the county's Office of Budget and Analysis and from the county executive's office who've been working very diligently on this as well. But I want to emphasize a couple key points here. First is that this is not a new conversation. This is a conversation I had with the CAL FIRE unit chief back in 2013 and 2014. This is a conversation that's been an ongoing one, and one that has been waiting for an actual structural solution. Second, that there is now a sense of urgency. Several years ago, the Board of Supervisors, sitting as the Board of Directors of the South County Fire Protection District, directed a number of interim measures to extend the timeline of the fiscal situation for the district. Those measures included trying to explore other revenue options for the district. Those measures included exploration of ways to cost share. You heard reference to the cost-sharing model for one engine with the City of Morgan Hill. Those measures have run their limit in the last several years. And so we're now faced on the precipice of a situation where there's not an ability to otherwise maintain current level of service for the South County community. In addition to that, the county organization, which again is a separate legal entity and has zero obligations to transfer general fund resources into the fire districts, is in a position where it is facing truly extraordinary fiscal pressures, including, among many other things, the fact that a third of the county's revenues are federally derived and at extreme risk that affect critical safety net services. And so the time is right. It happens to align with an end of life of the current contract, but there was reference to, no letter of termination. The current CAL FIRE agreement for the South County District terminates on its own terms at the end of this fiscal year. That's the expiration date for that contract. And so there's alignment there, alignment with the current needs, alignment regarding the current fiscal situation for the South County District as well. We're happy to answer questions on any of the issues or items that have been raised. We've reviewed the correspondence. We have thought carefully about the plan that's been brought forward. We have had conversations with affected organizations, including the prior CAL FIRE chief on many, many occasions. We fully recognize that when you're talking about fire protection and emergency response, you're talking about issues of vital life-saving importance. That's something that we care deeply about. That's something I know every member of the Board of Supervisors cares deeply about. And that is exactly why this item has been brought forward. Because we cannot be in a situation as a community where we can't fund a minimum level of service. And candidly, in my view, the existing service provision in South County is a minimum level of service that we can't drop below to ensure reasonable fire protection and emergency response to that area. That's why this item is in front of the Commission today. We recognize under statute that the Commission's obligated to approve the item, given that it's been brought forward by substantially similar resolutions from both districts. But notwithstanding that, we ask for your enthusiastic support of really addressing a long-time significant issue. Appreciate your diligence in that. We're happy to answer questions that the Commission may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And if you could please take a seat in case we have any of our commissioners that are ready to ask questions. I want to thank everyone for their comments, whether they were in person or sent by letter. I know that this is a really important issue for everyone involved, and certainly I'm taking it very seriously, as are the rest of the commissioners I know will also take this seriously. And I want to make a motion. I'm going to, as a point of privilege, I will make a motion supporting the staff recommendation in a moment, but I want to take just some additional time to go through some of the points that Mr. Williams had made, as well as Malima have pointed out in her presentation at the beginning of this conversation. And really at the center of all of this is, are we going to take action in order to make sure we take the steps to ensure that there's community safety and as Mr. Williams said, a minimum level of service. And this is really what is in front of you, is how are we going to do this for the Santa Clara South County Fire District? And there's been many solutions over time, one of which is a fee-for-service, right? So adding a fee-for-service to some of the calls and have that be reimbursed through insurance, or the insurance connected to the vehicle or to the person who we're responding to. But that hasn't been something that has been taken up. We've also explored, I think, through the years, an additional tax revenue. But as you've seen, even as recent in November of last year, there was a measure to increase taxes for the city of Gilroy, and that didn't go through. And so I have to say there isn't really the appetite to increase taxes in South County. And so this, what you're seeing in front of you today, is a reorganization of the fire districts. And it really is so that we can continue to support our South County with a minimum level of service that I feel our constituents deserve. And as LAFCO members, you're all deeply aware of the LAFCO policies and the county policies that designate areas for agriculture and open space preservation. And I know that there is a gentleman that's talked about the Williamson Act, and that provides a reduced tax base for those who are farmers. And so I don't want to pit our farmers as well involved in this conundrum, because we value our open space, we value our agriculture. We want to make sure that we preserve it. And so the Williamson Act actually does that, but it does reduce the tax base. And there is a very finite amount of taxes that come from this very small area. So while the tax base remains the same because of Prop 13, because of our value of agricultural land through the Williamson Act in preserving agriculture, the coffers aren't that great. They just don't grow. But what has been growing is the salaries and the cost to provide that service. And so at one point or another, something needs to happen in order to make sure that both are at the same level. And like I said previously, it is not going to be through taxes. We even if we increase taxes for that very small base, it would be so great that I think it just wouldn't work for constituents. And so what we do have in front of us, and what has happened in the past, even previous to myself coming on as a county supervisor, we had folks trying to figure out how do we solve this insolvency of Santa Clara South County Fire District. And in 2022, as I was entering office, my predecessor, Mike Wasserman, he tried to address this crisis, and he brought forward a request to the county to make sure that we looked to see if we could somehow address the budget shortfalls that were coming to the way of the district. And it was very limited, and so what we ended up doing was investing general fund dollars to cover the shortfalls, and it covered some of the decaying stations and a fire engine, and this was before I was sworn in. And so in the first months that I came on board, I picked up this urgency and made sure that what Supervisor Wasserman had initiated would go through the budget. As Nilima has pointed out, and the data that you have in front of you is that all of these districts are supposed to be independent and solvent on their own, right? And not supposed to rely on outside funding. And as you very well know, my colleagues protect our general fund dollars, as many of you in elected office do as well. But what was happening was that there was a collapsing roof above the heads of firefighters, and so we needed to make sure that we fixed that roof. We needed a new fire engine, and we worked with folks to make sure, with our fire district commissioners, and to make sure that we had a fire engine. And so there's only so many things that the county can do to come in to rectify insolvency for a district that it doesn't operate. And thus coming in this scenario of reorganization. And so there's this proposal in front of you to reorganize the South County Fire District. And I know that there's a lot of other folks, as I have done coffee hours in my community as well as some community meetings, there's a lot of folks who also understand where we stand. And so I don't want you to think, and if you've gone through your letters, there's other folks who understand and support what our staff recommendation is, and that is this reorganization. I think everybody would like things to stay the same. But if things stay the same, what we're going to see is a fire district that's going to be insolvent very soon. And I think within about 18 months, if my projections, I think this is the projections that came from Mr. Williams. And that was not going to be what I was going to support. And I think our board understood that as well. And so that's why they supported this reorganization. Now, I think that there's some other things that come into play, and that is when we have some mutual aid and an overhead that we share with, that CAL FIRE shares, not we, but CAL FIRE shares with the city of Morgan Hill. And while I understand that there is some concerns, and I want to make sure that I address them, because I heard loud and clear about, for the city of Morgan Hill, you want to make sure that the fire engine, that there's maybe some neutral or positive impact to engine 67, because there's some cost sharing there. And so I want to ask Mr. Williams about that. I also want to ask you, Mr. Williams, about how you can work with Morgan Hill, or what has the work been with Morgan Hill to honor their financial constraints, or any negotiating that has happened, because as this moves forward, we want to make sure that other folks, especially the city of Morgan Hill, city of Gilroy, have the least amount of impact as possible. Can you answer that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I just want to say, kind of address the big picture, which is, of course, we're committed to working with Morgan Hill and Gilroy, which is why on January 8th, before the agenda materials had even posted to the Board of Supervisors, I directly reached out to the city manager of both cities and extended invitation not only to preview the item, but also to address questions. In addition, Mr. Mills, Deputy County Executive, I know has met with Ms. Turner. We continue to be available to address any questions or concerns with the city, as well as with the city of Gilroy. We recognize, obviously, that as in all parts of our county, mutual aid is an essential component associated with all fire service delivery in the state of California. It's the bread and butter part of fire service response in this county and elsewhere. It's something I know Central Fire knows well. It's something I know County Communications knows well. It's actually the Region 2, which is all of this whole part of California's emergency mutual aid coordinator for Cal OES as well now. So we're committed to continuing that work and to address any of those concerns. Specifically, Engine 67 is an engine that 70 to 80% of the time runs calls into the city of Morgan Hill, and there's an existing cost-sharing agreement between the South County District and the city associated with that engine. And we are absolutely committed to working with the city. Obviously, it's a mutual agreement with the city, so there's nothing that would be agreed to that the city itself wouldn't be agreeing to as well, associated with appropriate sharing of those resources and continuing cost sharing of those resources that, in the case of Engine 67, is an engine that actually primarily responds to calls in the city of Morgan Hill.
Chair, can I ask a question of a comment he made that I think is an error?
This is my time for
I just
for
thought I would ask
comments,
if that's
and so if you would like, I will call you when the time is up. And so, okay, wonderful. And the other thing that I would like to ask you, because I do think that there's a lot of misinformation, and I'm going to be very, very reductive in this example, and I apologize if it's oversimplifying things. But say that I share housing with somebody else. My roommate pays half of the rent. I pay for half of the rent. And if that roommate leaves, I'm still responsible for it because that's my agreement. I decided to rent an apartment. I decided maybe I couldn't afford it, and I asked somebody to come in. But in the end, that becomes my responsibility. And having CAL FIRE or having Central Fire District take this over is like having a new person in being housed there. And irregardless, that the other roommate needs to pay for their own rent, if you will. We are not responsible, or Central Fire is not responsible. South County Fire isn't responsible for the shared cost. And I know that this is a very oversimplified example. But this is what is happening, is that CAL FIRE, I believe, shared costs with the city of Morgan Hill in order to provide services in South County through the South County Fire District. And because if they aren't the people who are going to continue, or the organization that's going to continue to provide a fire service, that shared cost model doesn't work for them as well. And this is something that comes into play. Please go ahead.
Yeah, and I just want to note something about, the relationship between multiple service providers. About 10 years ago, it was actually Central Fire that had the contract with the city of Morgan Hill. And of course, the South County Fire District contract was with CAL FIRE. So there's plenty of precedent associated with both service providers working collaboratively together to respond to incidents in that exact same location, in that same community. It just happened to be the other way around. So that was the situation for many, many years. And I know that when County Fire no longer was a service provider for the city of Morgan Hill, there was cooperation and collaboration associated with the handoff there. But these are two agencies that jointly responded and worked together on numerous incidents in that exact same geography for at least a decade.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I don't want to exclude some of the concerns, and so I will ask Commissioner Turner. You had something that you wanted to contribute. Go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Mr. Williams, you had mentioned that you had reached out and contacted City Manager Turner, and I think probably City Administrator Forbes
That's correct.
prior to the meeting.
Prior
Prior to the county.
On January 8th, yes.
So on January 8th, just several hours before the meeting, several hours before the county Board of Supervisors was going to make their decision, you reached
No,
out?
that's not correct. That was before the agenda materials published. The agenda materials published about a week prior to the meeting.
So you're saying you contacted the city manager a week before the meeting?
I'd be happy to show you the phone records. Yes, I did.
Okay.
In addition, Mr. Mills, Deputy County Executive, met with Ms. Turner on January 22nd, and we've repeatedly extended invitations to address any questions or concerns. And we continue to do so, and we continue to be happy to do so. We also did reach out to schedule a forum in Morgan Hill, ultimately due to challenges associated with identifying appropriate dates. It ended up getting consolidated with the public forum and community discussion that happened through the San Martin Neighborhood Association. The Central Fire District also has been holding office hours down in South County and has met and had communication with both cities as well. Look, I think the important point is this, which is, we're happy to address substantive concerns to ensure that we are delivering effective and appropriate fire service response. But one of the things that has been extraordinarily challenging in the public discourse around this item is the continued provision of very concerning misinformation associated with what's happening. I had to spend hours trying to address things like the suggestion that people's property tax bills would go up. Prop 13 forecloses that. We've had to address a whole litany of concerns. These aren't concerns that people have come up with on their own. These are concerns that are being foisted out there. There's a concern that's in some of the correspondence in the packet related to unfunded pension liabilities. Unfunded pension liabilities, as all of you know, working with different governmental agencies, this is a total red herring. And I'm happy to address that in further detail if there's questions. But what this is about is trying to structurally address the fiscal challenges for the South County Fire District. We are absolutely happy to address concerns related to any of those issues or clarify anything. But this is an item of urgency given that fiscal situation.
Well, again, just to clarify, the letter from the city of Gilroy also indicates there was no prior communications with Gilroy's leadership team regarding this agenda item. I'll just
Commissioner
leave it at
Turner.
that. But the fact is, there are some questions regarding you're talking about, again, we get it, talking
Commissioner
about.
Turner,
I'm sorry.
I allowed you to speak during my time to
Oh, I'm
ask
sorry. I thought you
for
turned your-
that point.
forgive me. I
but,
appreciate that.
But this continues to be my time, and so I will address the concerns of the city of Gilroy, and I think I'd like to ask Chief Gerdgo if she could please share with me some of the plans on working with the Gilroy Fire Department after transferring lease over South County Fire District Central Fire, and so I'd like to hear from you on some of that.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Arenas, Commissioners. First of all, before I answer the question, I do want to just thank everybody who is here. This is definitely challenging for many reasons. I recognize the firefighters who are currently working out of the stations and how they call it home and how it's hard for them. I understand that there is information that we see that is also challenging because we really want to make sure that to the best of our ability, we provide facts about county fire and facts about our operations and our infrastructure. Again, the organization comprised of 350 employees, of which 80 are civilians. It's a bit like a city. Like, we operate a bit differently than many fire departments that I think people are used to. So when we are tasked to come and educate ourselves and make sure that we're prepared, not just to take on the potential operational components, but also everything from contracts and continuing to collaborate, that is the thing that I want to make sure I get across from the perspective of not just my seat, but the entire staff behind me, who some of which live in South County. That is so vital for us because we all have sworn an oath to put the community first. And I want to make sure that that is heard loud and clear, not just in chambers here, but for those listening online. The Fire Chiefs Association meets monthly. It tends to be at County Fire's headquarters. We had a meeting today. So as information comes forth, as quickly as I can possibly do so, I put information out there. And if I am not able to attend that meeting, I send a proxy. Deputy Fire Chief Brian Glass attended recently in January, the same month of the action, the board action. So in talking to all of the fire chiefs from all of the cities in that meeting, there is a space that we continue to make sure we talk about the challenges, but I understand and recognize that that's at the fire chief level. From the perspective of annexation, is my understanding that the contracts that are in place today with South County Fire District can be folded over into the reorganized organization. So we will continue to partner with the county, work collaboratively with city agencies, for both, incorporated north and south, but beyond that border. I hope that answers your question, Chairperson Arenas.
Thank you. Yes, and I was going to move forward also with Company 7 volunteer firefighters, because I know that was part of the motion that I made with my at the board with my colleagues who supported it, because I want to make sure that that the volunteers, and there's a very just passionate group who wants to continue to serve in this capacity. And so I wanted, I know that there might be some different options for them, and so I wanted to see if you could just talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. There are, again, it's an excellent question, and definitely from the letters that we all read, this is County Fire staff, it resonates loud and clear how not just valued that Company 70 is, but how vital it is, how integrated they are to that community. So for County Fire, again, we have a volunteer program and have had one for decades and decades. Now that volunteer program typically is a space that some folks volunteer and never want to be a firefighter. So they just do it out of the goodness of their heart. We have had consolidations over the years, Saratoga Fire District being one of them, in which their volunteers drove, and we have had a track record to be able to bring on those volunteers in the capacity that they have, working through their qualifications to ensure that they are operationally ready to perform at the level that they are expected to perform and that they want to perform based on what they have in terms of their qualifications, have basically went through in terms of whatever training. So for Company 70, to answer that question directly, County Fire is in full support of how we can move that Company 70 under the fold of the organization. Now, Mr. Williams had mentioned that County Fire had been in Morgan Hill for almost 2 decades prior to that when County Fire had the contract. There was 2 different volunteer lists that we worked off of back then, those who worked and lived, or those who lived in South County, because even when we were the fire department for Morgan Hill, we understood how very limited resources are down there, and so we had a separate volunteer list for folks who lived down there to be able to pull even off duty. Now, what that looks like, it remains to be seen, only because we have to go through effects bargaining, but it is definitely on the table. Working through their qualifications, I assure you we want to keep them in the fold.
Perfect. And how about the possibility of Company 7 becoming autonomous as well? Is that a possibility as well?
For me to speak to the autonomous nature of several volunteer companies that work and operate in the county, I think would be misguided at this point because I just need to know more. Part of what is inherent to County Fire is we dig in, we learn, we look through options. Our collaborative relationship with State Fire Training, the fact that we are an accredited local academy, one of only 2 in the county, just speaks to the work that we do on the back end to help determine how we can support those companies. So that conversation will be collaborative. We'll ask them to come to the table. We'll work through what that would look like and then work through council on that.
I appreciate that. And I know that the UVS and Casa Loma volunteer, there's a volunteer fire department for the UVS, and then Casa Loma has a volunteer fire association. Yes. And so they behave a little more autonomous. And I know that there's different reasons why people volunteer. A lot of folks do that at the beginning of their career in order to explore it and figure out whether this is something that they can actually do and want to do. And then there's folks who have other careers and who just want to make some meaningful contribution, which is a lot of the folks who I think came to my coffee hours and insisted that we explore some options. So I'll take that off online, and what I think I'll do is what I'll do is a referral to our Board of Supervisors to take a look at that. You know, the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is if you could walk through maybe, I'm sorry, this is Mr. Williams. Could you walk through some of the efforts to communicate with CAL FIRE, Mr. Williams? Because I want to make sure that it is clear to the commissioners what the process has been.
Absolutely. So as I indicated in my comments, some of the conversations around the structural challenges have been going on for literally decades. And there have been, of course, a number of different unit chiefs for the Santa Clara unit of CAL FIRE over that period of time. But more recently, with respect to this item that's now in front of the commission, contact was initiated in the early January, also January 8th, and then a number of meetings that occurred in conversations with the former unit chief, including a number of conversations that actually even predated that around the current, as I said, contract expiration. It's not a termination, but the current contract expiration of the CAL FIRE contract with the South County District, a number of conversations associated with costs, conversations associated with purchase of apparatus, which is an item that actually came in front of the Board of Supervisors last fall, where there was significant conflict, candidly, between the South County Commission and the CAL FIRE unit staff, and a number of conversations that have occurred all through January, February, March, regarding the Amador agreement that exists between the South County District regarding the Pacheco Pass Station, which is a separate agreement from the so-called Schedule A agreement that provides the base staffing service for the 3 stations in South County, the 3 main stations, as well as conversations around transition of services and conversations around whether there could be a short-term extension to help facilitate that too. So there have been many meetings and ongoing conversations related to both the underlying issues here as well as the specifics associated with this reorganization proposal.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And what has the conversation been about the Pacheco Amador agreement? Is it still in play? Are we still moving forward with what
we have repeatedly and consistently requested that CAL FIRE agree to continue the current arrangement for the Amador contract for the station. We believe that is a sensible approach. The county has previously had other Amador agreements with the same unit. For example, we had one for a period of time associated with the Sweetwater Station that years ago I negotiated with the CAL FIRE unit chief. We have not gotten a definitive response from CAL FIRE. The plan for service does have an alternative. I think we all acknowledge it's not as good an alternative as continuing the Amador agreement. There should not be an issue with continuing the current Amador agreement on its current terms. We are in receipt, of course, of the correspondence related to that from CAL FIRE, and we look forward to continuing those conversations after approval of this item. But that is the arrangement we believe makes the most sense. We do have an alternative plan for ensuring continuity of service in the event that that does not come to fruition. We're not sure why there have been so many procedural items placed in front of us. I can tell you those did not exist, and those were non-issues when we negotiated the Sweetwater Amador Agreement about a decade ago.
Thank you. And I think there was also an opportunity for us to extend CAL FIRE contract while we moved into this reorganization. What happened with that conversation?
We were told that CAL FIRE would not entertain anything other than a long-term extension associated with the contract.
And there was an offer for what, to explore what kind of an extension?
We were specifically looking for at least a 6-month extension of the contract with opportunity to engage in further alignment to ensure an appropriate transition of services.
Got it, okay. So I just want to show our commissioners that there has been a lot of work that has taken place behind the scenes to engage the different entities with these conversations and to make sure that folks are not, isn't a city or an entity that is destabilized, but we know that changes are going to, obviously this reorganization is going to create change. Mr. Williams, you're looking at me.
I did want to just,
Go ahead.
in fairness, add one important point related to that, which is the unit chief did change during the last couple of months. And so, of course, many of these conversations were with the prior unit chief prior to that transition of leadership for the CAL FIRE unit. I just wanted to make sure that was clear on the record.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I am the only person on this commission and on the board of the county that represents the residents of the unincorporated South County. Now that you have folks here who represent a city, but I represent the unincorporated South County, and those are the services that we're here to protect. And obviously, we want to make sure that we don't destabilize other services as much as we can, but we have a responsibility, all the commissioners have a responsibility here for the folks who are in the unincorporated areas for this fire service. And with that, I'm going to make a motion to approve staff's recommendation and put out the notice of protest hearing and hold the hearing as soon as possible after the LAFCO resolution approval. I'm going to ask that there are specific additional requests that you work with me and presently to ensure to bring that back to the board as a new referral and not as a condition of approval, because I am told that any condition of approval would require board approval, and that would negatively impact this transition. And like I said, I don't want to create any more disruption to the process, and so I'm hoping I can get a second.
I'll go and second it, and I do have some questions.
Perfect, thank you. And presently, Commissioner Lee, I will go with if you don't mind, with Mayor Turner.
Yeah, let him finish.
I didn't see how the lights turned on, and I apologize, but if each one of you want to tell me which one went first, I will honor that.
That's okay, doesn't matter.
Okay,
Your choice.
okay, we'll go ahead and start with
Okay.
Commissioner Turner.
Thank you, Chair.
I apologize.
I would like to, if I could call up Chief Hess to respond. And even at some point, City Manager Turner, but Chief, you'll go to the other podium there. Next, there you go, right there. Chief, could you give your take on the communications between the county and CAL FIRE?
Yes. So, Commissioners, good afternoon. Nice to meet everybody. As Mr. Williams said, I am the interim CAL FIRE unit chief for the Santa Clara unit. I was the full-time CAL FIRE unit chief from 2018 to 2022, overseeing the 5 counties that make up Santa Clara County, or make up Santa Clara CAL FIRE unit. With the transition of Chief Carter retiring and accepting a position with the city of Redwood City, I accepted the position full-time back with CAL FIRE as a retired annuitant, and that started essentially February 1. I have been in contact with the Deputy County Executive, John Mills, and I've picked up conversations with him associated with the dissolution of the South County Fire Protection District. One thing to note is, and you've seen it in my letter to LAFCO, there have been a lot of conversations associated with CAL FIRE, with CAL FIRE's jurisdiction, with CAL FIRE operations and CAL FIRE administration. And so I was not included in the creation of the fire plan. When that came out publicly, I was able to access that plan. That plan had CAL FIRE written in there 56 times. So I had to go through the plan because there were some statements, obligations, and jurisdictional statements associated with CAL FIRE that frankly needed clarification. And so you will see that in my letter back to LAFCO indicating, though, this is what Amador is, this is what Amador is originally for, and I went through that document very clearly, and we spoke about Public Resource Code 4144 and 4142, which is Amador. It's very important there is a distinction between those two. The conversation here today associated with CAL FIRE, like Mr. Williams said, they're waiting for us to get back to them on Amador. The last conversation that I've had with Deputy County Executive Mills is actually CAL FIRE requested a map outlining what LRA area are you interested in CAL FIRE responding to. We have to date have not received that. We do have regular meetings throughout the month, so I'm hoping to get that hopefully on the 17th. So we do move forward through those throughout the month. We have meetings scheduled over the next couple of months. What's interesting about something to share with you about Amador is it's very important to understand the ask for Amador is the Amador agreement is inextricably linked to the full service fire protection agreement that's in place. It's very important for everybody to understand that. The Amador agreement at Pacheco has an ALS, Advanced Life Support Paramedic component, tethered to that. That agreement is tethered to the full service fire protection agreement. So what does that mean? It means there's 31 people for the full service fire protection agreement that we utilize those people, those bodies, that support to actually execute the Amador agreement at Pacheco. The challenge that CAL FIRE is facing right now is the full service fire protection agreement. Public Resource Code 4142 is being carved out, that's up to you to make that decision. With that going away, it's going to be very challenging for CAL FIRE to have a standalone Public Resource Code 4144 agreement without the support tethered to a 4142 full service fire protection agreement. Very different than what Mr. Williams was saying about these former Amador agreements. It is inextricably linked to that. I'm waiting for the map so that we can determine what area are you looking for us to provide service to, but just the paramedic component to that is we utilize the paramedics that are in the agreement that is going away. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And before you leave the podium, I have one more question, but I do want to make sure that it is understood. I think we've made reference here, and that is that both CAL FIRE and Central Fire are highly professional, competent, capable organizations that are somehow in the midst of this conversation. And unfortunately, almost feeling like pitted against one another. That's not what any of these questions up here today are going to be related to. And so just to Central Fire and to CAL FIRE, we really do appreciate your service and your dedication to the fire safety of our communities. With regard to this, Chief, with regard to this this timeline, which we're now looking at July 1st, as I understand it. What is your concern, if you have any concerns, with a transition occurring in that sort of short period of time?
Thank you. So, like you've read in my letter, CAL FIRE, we've been in a cooperative fire protection agreement with South Santa Clara County Fire for many, many years. In that agreement, in what we call the LG1, which is the actual agreement, CAL FIRE actually needs a letter of intent from the county or the county fire or the South County Fire District indicating what their intentions are with the current agreement that is supposed to be going away on July 1st, or is going away on July 1st. We actually need a letter, and I've requested this to the Santa Clara County Executive's office a couple of times. We have not received that, so our concern is, as July shows up, I think there's 90 days here, we have some obligations associated with our employees, with the bargaining units. We have multiple bargaining units tethered to that with service employees that we need to reallocate and find homes for these folks. So 90 days is coming quickly. We need an official letter of intent from the county, which will kick off the next steps for us.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Chief. If I can bring up City Manager Turner, if I may. Christine, I wonder if you could just respond. I know that there were some comments made that multiple conversations occurred or attempts were made. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I would just start off by saying that in Morgan Hill, we value partnership and collaboration. We value open and honest communications with our neighboring agencies and maintaining excellent relationships. And so part of that is meeting with agencies on a periodic basis. And so we attempt to meet with the county a few times each year, and I think this started with medical services and the county looking to buy at the time DePaul. And so we started meeting with James Williams' predecessor, and then after that James, and then it sort of evolved into economic development and other sort of discussions. And I've been concerned about the financial nature of where the district was headed, and as a matter of fact, that was a topic that I would bring up. And we would talk about the mitigation fees and how those were being looked at. We would talk about the fee for service, and never was it mentioned that the county was going to be recommending this sort of dissolution that's being considered today. And as a matter of fact, in November, December, I convened a group of people from the county and Gilroy and Morgan Hill to talk about different revenue mechanisms, you know, in the spirit of collaboration. You know, how can we save this district? Because while it doesn't directly impact our fire services, because our provider is CAL FIRE, it does impact us if the district needs to close a fire station. And so I convened people, and once again, the county was there but did not mention that this was an option. And yes, James Williams did reach out, and I appreciated getting a call, but it was right before the agenda materials went out. It wasn't while this was being considered such that we could talk and collaborate. You know, so it's different getting a call, hey, the agenda materials are coming out shortly, just want to give you a heads up. That's very different than months ahead of time. Let's talk about this, let's strategize, let's have county fire at the table, let's have CAL FIRE at the table. But with all of that said, I don't want any sort of bad relations with any of these entities, because like I said, and like I started with, collaboration is very important. As mentioned, county fire served our community very well. And I think I would just end with, you know, as I talk to our council, as I talk to our community members, we in Morgan Hill have two major concerns, significant concerns that need to be addressed. And what are the most important things? Life safety. And so for this, what does it equate to? Our boundary drop agreement, okay? And then the second thing is Engine 67. And while there have been discussions, yes, I've talked to James, yes, I've talked to John Mills, but these are very high-level discussions, not let's get at the table, let's look at the existing agreement, let's look at how we can do this, let's look at what the cost share is gonna look like. That hasn't happened. None of those technical, operational, let's dig in and figure this out, those discussions have yet to happen. Similarly, CAL FIRE is yet to get we're going to cease operations with CAL FIRE. Those sort of things haven't happened. I think what's happening is you are all asking to put in place the steps to make this go forward without the collaboration and public input and engagement up front. That's what I would share.
Very good. Thank you, Christina. A question for Mr. Williams. Will there be a competitive bid process to provide the fire services for the county? Should this come together?
No, and I'm actually glad you asked that question, because that's, I think, one of the items that's been a source of significant confusion in the conversations here. The item is not a question of going through a contracting process such as the one Morgan Hill has gone through periodically associated with who will be the service provider. The item's a reorganization of these two special districts. County Fire unlike the South County Fire District, which has 0 district staff, so it's completely contracted out to CAL FIRE. The Central Fire Protection District has its own employees, and so those employees, given the structure of that district, are the ones to provide the service. There's no contract with the operator for the Central Fire Protection District because it's actually staffed by its own staff. And so it's a different model in that sense. And so the item that's in front of the commission, which would reorganize those two districts and annex the territory into the Central Fire Protection District, would make it the Central Fire Protection District's legal responsibility to provide that fire protection service with its own staff.
Even knowing, though, that the costs are 2 times to 2.5 times more expensive in bringing that personnel to South County, there'd be no interest in doing an RFP. And I mean, if the concern is costs, and that's quite a bit of what we're hearing, and I think comparing the two, we probably have very similar fire service operations. I think one has maybe more air tankers, helicopters, dozers. I don't know that Central Fire has those things. Maybe they do. But if the cost is a concern, wouldn't that be a consideration?
Ironically, there was a letter LAFCO received early on in this process from the CAL FIRE union that noted a provision that was added to the government code a couple of years ago related to contracting out of fire service. That letter made some assertions regarding this proposal that were just not correct because that wasn't the nature of the actual proposal or what was happening. But that code provision actually stands in the way of doing a separate RFP process for a separate operator for a portion of Central Fire Protection District's territory. So it creates significant procedural processes that would be required to go through that. Of course, those types of items would ultimately be decisions for that district to do through, in this case, the Board of Supervisors sitting as the district Board of Directors. But I just wanted to note that because there are very significant protections that have been put in place legislatively and imposed on fire districts legislatively to make it very difficult to change operators through that kind of an RFP process.
Very good. Okay, but the Board of Supervisors, you're saying, could make that decision?
The Board of Supervisors could potentially move through a process. Like I said, it would require a number of procedural mechanisms and steps, but it's something that theoretically over time is something that could be a decision made by the Central Fire District.
Very good. It's also our understanding that the higher cost of fire services will be subsidized by the northern areas of the proposed Zone 4 in South Santa Clara County, and that taxes, fees, et cetera, are not expected to be raised in Santa Clara County. Is that true?
Yes, and I think this is something that's important. So let me first talk about taxes. The property taxes that we're referring to for the operation of all of the fire protection districts in our county are a share of that 1% ad valorem property tax. It's capped at 1% under Prop 13. And how that money's distributed between the different entities, whether it's a city or a fire district or the water district or the county, et cetera, is governed by state statutes that have set certain formulas and ratios in place. They're known as AB 8 factors, named after Assembly Bill 8 from back in the 1970s. What this proposal would do is transfer that existing AB 8 property tax share from the South County District to the reorganized Central Fire District. There's no change in anyone's property tax bill, either for those residents living in South County or for those residents currently living in the Central Fire Protection District. Not only is there no change in the proposal, there can't be any increase in that ad valorem levy. It's flatly prohibited by Proposition 13. You can't even put such an item on the ballot to increase the ad valorem tax for operating costs. So I think that's just really important for everyone in the public to understand and recognize. What this does do by consolidating the two districts together is something that has been pointed out in prior LAFCO studies related to fire service provision, again, going back decades, including the 2010 fire service review, which is it actually allows fiscal resources, the existing fiscal resources within those districts, to be spent across the districts in a way that then supports the provision of appropriate level of fire service for the community overall. So that is the purpose behind the action here. It's a feature, not a bug, so to speak. That is the intention behind the reorganization. And it then brings the access to and availability of those resources to our residents in South County.
In the district plan for services, part of this packet prepared for LAFCO of Santa Clara County, there are 3 different items here that actually talk about fire protection mitigation fee. That's on page 35 of that document I just mentioned. A fee for service revenue, and a property assessment, all on page 35 of that document. So is there, then if it's not taxes, is there other fees that may be assessed?
Yes, so there's an existing fire mitigation fee that's been imposed for a number of years by the South County Fire District. That mitigation fee would transfer to the reorganized district. It is in the process of undergoing fee study for being up for an update. It hasn't been updated in a number of years, and we certainly anticipate that that mitigation fee would be updated. Now, the mitigation fee is imposed on new development activity and consistent with the requirements of Prop 218 and state law. That fee can only be used for capital and other related improvements, not operating costs. But yes, that is an example of a fee that's an existing fee. It does need to be updated. That's work that the South County District has been undertaking already, but would need to be updated and would continue in order to provide that additional support, again, for capital-related expenditures.
Very good. Chair, I'm going to turn it back over and let others ask questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Trimble.
Mr. Williams, thank you very much for the clarifications you provided to us. I found it very informative. I have a few questions. Did I hear you in response to Mr. Turner say that the South County District has no executive staff?
That is correct. So one of the challenges throughout this process, the South County District has no staff of its own, period. All of the staffing services for the South County District are provided through the agreement with the state of California through CAL FIRE. In addition, the county provides some support through the county executive's office and through the county council's office, but the district itself has no employees, and that is in stark contrast to the Central Fire Protection District, which those folks that you see over there are all district employees. They're not county employees.
So to me, the implication is that you don't have executive cost savings in this merger?
Yes and no. So there are cost efficiencies associated with different service models. On the one hand, I think it should be noted and is worth acknowledging that when you utilize CAL FIRE, that you get administrative overhead. Of course, they charge, for indirect costs and other things, but administrative overhead from the state itself. Similarly, you get administrative overhead and resources that come your way from County Fire, given the size of its organization as well. But there are no employees of the district itself that would be cut or changed because there are no employees of the district itself at all.
So switching topics, if I lived in the central district, I'd be very concerned about my tax revenue being switched elsewhere. That's what's going to happen?
I don't believe that residents of the current residents of the Central Fire Protection District should be so concerned, and let me tell you why. That is the nature of what it means to be in a community where we're ensuring overall resilience and protection. Fire service, as I referenced earlier, is inherently about community and collective resources and mutual aid response. Having an insolvent South County Fire District is a threat for fire protection to the entire Santa Clara County community. And being able to ensure continuity of service provision at a certain minimal level of service for the South County community and even be able to enhance that over time is something that I would argue, I do argue, I said this publicly at community meetings and elsewhere, I'll say it again today, that is to the benefit of every Santa Clara County resident, emphatically including those residents who currently live in the territory of the Central Fire Protection District. So yes, there's dollars that will move in a sense. They don't literally move, right? But there's dollars that will be spent to provide fire service in the southern part of our county. But that is a good thing for the entire community, obviously for the residents who live in the South County District. But that's a good thing for the residents who live in Morgan Hill and Gilroy as well, who rely on, in the case of Morgan Hill, a majority of the calls coming out of Engine 67. That's a good thing also for the residents in the Central Fire Protection District, because it is not to their benefit to see the south part of the county have fire service collapse. So I would absolutely make that case to all of the residents who are in the current territory of the Central Fire District, and would do so publicly and do so right now.
So I appreciate your response. Have you held a forum in the Central Fire area to communicate that?
We have not held a specific forum in the Central Fire area. Of course, the Board of Supervisors sits as the governing board there, and I just would note that this item was supported by, voted on, approved by every member of the Board of Supervisors, only one of whom represents the geographic territory of the South, and most of the rest of whom have some territory in the existing Central Fire Protection District. They're the elected representatives for those communities and supported the proposal.
Thank you.
I apologize. Commissioner Lee, please.
Yes, thank you so much. So first, I would like to give either the Chief Kirkall or County Executive Williams to address some of the specific questions that we have received from the public comment addressing this issue. So we understand the fiscal side of it, but what I'm concerned about is sometimes some of the comments basically say is that, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The services is appreciated by the local community, as we have seen from the public comments for many years. What exactly are the steps that we are doing here in the proposal to ensure that these adequate fire service levels will be maintained? We keep using the term minimum level, we don't want minimum, we want really good service. Minimum is just a bare bottom. So, James, can you explain a little bit more of what exactly are we doing that would
No,
actually
I
improve this?
really actually appreciate that question, because the reason we're talking about minimum levels to actually express how dire the situation otherwise is for the South County Fire District. If we could continue with the current status quo, this proposal wouldn't be in front of the commission. The problem is that the South County District cannot continue to fund its existing ongoing operations on a go-forward basis. Now, there are only 3 stations, plus the Amador agreement, but 3 stations that are funded by the South County District to cover an immense geographic territory. So the idea of closing one of those stations, which is candidly the only way you could bridge that structural gap, unless you had an additional revenue stream, and that has been looked at, and as was referenced earlier, we do not believe that there would be success in passing a level of a special tax that would be necessary to bridge that revenue gap, and it would be a very hefty tax given the small size of the district. That closure of one of those 3 stations would leave an extraordinary geographic gap in service. So that's why the situation is dire. That's why there's urgency around addressing the fiscal situation. That's exactly why change is coming one way or the other. It's not about wanting to change service provisions or models. It's about the fact that the South County District is in a very significant structural position, and this is an opportunity to address that in a structural manner. So I think that
Yeah.
you know,
No,
puts it
it-
in the perspective, because it isn't about trying to change service providers at all. It's about trying to address the fiscal situation.
Right. So there's some things that was brought up regarding, for example, the Engine 67, right? So this is something that Morgan Hill is funding half of it. By this change, do you foresee there's any change to that type of agreement, that agreement of the 50-50 should still remains?
It's a mutually beneficial agreement. Let me just say a couple things about the engine. So over the last couple of years, the call data shows that between 70 and 80% of the calls that engine responds to are in the city of Morgan Hill. So it's obviously a resource that significantly, it's a district-funded resource that significantly benefits the city, and so that's why the city has picked up a cost share related to that. It's in both entities' mutual benefit to continue an appropriate arrangement associated with that. But I do want to say one thing around all of these various agreements, whether it's the Tree Haven Station agreement in Gilroy, whether it's the Auto Aid Mutual Aid agreements. The commission will notice, for example, that one of the items in the resolution in front of the commission, and this is standard, this is by operation of law, is that when you have a reorganization like this, those contracts don't just poof disappear. Those existing contractual arrangements transfer to the new entity. So, you know, the auto aid, mutual aid, and other agreements, of course, there's opportunities to negotiate and amend them as appropriate and as need adjustment. But existing leases, existing assets, existing resources, existing commitments, existing liabilities become existing liabilities, agreements, you know, assets, et cetera, of the new reorganized entity. And that's actually an item that's, like I said, expressly in the resolution that was provided by LAFCO staff to the commission.
Okay. In terms of costs, a lot of folks will talk about, you already stated clearly that there's no effect on people's property tax, which is, of course, important. Is there any possibility that either the city of Gilroy or the city of Morgan Hill would bear a higher burden in terms of costs of fire protection because of this change, or you think it should be status quo as where we are right now?
things should, there is no existing fiscal agreement between the city of Gilroy and the South County District. So on that front, there should be no change in any fiscal arrangement. There is, the one fiscal arrangement that exists is that engine with the city of Morgan Hill, where there's a cost share. And as I just said, that's a mutually beneficial agreement between the city and the district that I would assume would continue to be of mutual benefit to the city and the district to continue to cost share that resource.
Okay, so basically, there's no intent for the future responsibility of this falling into Morgan Hill or having extra costs. This should be status quo as we are. That would be the intention currently, correct?
That's absolutely the intention.
Okay. So some of the comments that was somewhat unfortunate, I think we've been hearing is from the city manager from Morgan Hill has mentioned this regarding the discussion has been later than it should be. If there could be more folks at the table in terms of creation of the fire plan as spoke by the other CAL FIRE representative as well. And because the issue here is, obviously, I see the impetus of this is about trying to get the fiscal side fixed up. I'm also, of course, and most people here are also concerned that besides the money side, is that we really want to make sure there's full cooperation to come up with this fire plan, to make sure that this is a success moving forward. July 1st is coming very soon. With this vote today, if this were to pass, how could we ensure that there is no gap in service and making sure that the fire safety and all this is going to be at least as good as what we are now, if not improved?
Well, I just have to commend the chief and the county fire team. That plan for service that's in front of the commission includes backup plans to ensure exactly that. We can't commit to, for example, what CAL FIRE will or won't agree to. Not even the unit chief can make those commitments, right? We understand and recognize those things go all the way up right to Sacramento. And so the plan for service includes contingencies to ensure continuity of fire protection service, which is, of course, paramount. And it's designed that way, and you'll see, for example, we do believe that an Amador agreement, continuing the existing Amador agreement with the same existing service provision, with the same service area served by the station, makes the most sense. But if that doesn't end up coming to fruition between now and the effective date, the plan for service specifically includes an alternate model. It's not as ideal, but an alternate model that puts at the front the service delivery piece. So that commitment has been made, that commitment's in the plan for service itself, in order to ensure that there are no gaps in coverage, no gaps in service. And it's listed in that plan for service, again, I'll point to the discussion of the Amador agreement, in a manner that, of course, lists first the ideal option and then a backup.
Yes, thank you for explaining the backup plan. So I would urge this. I mean, the thing that really kind of bothers me from listening to these comments is that, the firefighters in general, if I've worked with this public arena, are really a family. And when I see the two sides in this case here is almost working on opposite sides, it pains me to see that. And I really do think there's a lot of cooperation that really needs to be happening and continuing. So I'm going to strongly encourage that the individuals that need to be at the table to meet more frequently, to be bring up to the table if this were to pass today, or regardless. I think really everybody needs to be at the table far more frequently to make sure, like today they mentioned that, there's a map that's needed, there was no answer to us on this LRA, and when are we going to get through that? I just want to make sure that all these issues are being resolved, not at our level here certainly, or even the board of supervisors. This is a level that really needs to be worked at the staff level to make sure this transition is successful and smooth at the end. I just want to make sure that the protection of the safety of everybody is so paramount. As we all know, the fire risk is something that everybody is fully aware of, especially seeing what happened in Los Angeles. And I really hope that first of all, I want to applaud you for coming up with some of these solutions in terms of trying to find ways to get the funding gap being met. But at the same time, I do believe there's certainly more outreach and cooperation from various parties. Really, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner Chapman, please.
Thank you, Chair. My questions are a little bit different tangent because I represent a special district, the Open Space Authority. So what's top of mind for our agency is wildfires and working, because we're looking at wildfire interface and we're looking at working with the city and the county. So I have some questions that came up from our staff from last week's meeting. What they're primarily concerned with is building new relationships with fire crews responsible for responding to our lands. They're concerned with loss of knowledge about the wildlands that have people that have institutional knowledge and the gap of time it'll take to build that up, and reduce response times to remote areas due to that loss of institutional knowledge, and making sure that there's time to build new relationships on the ground that they hope that you can hire from local talent that already know the area. So this is probably directed to the fire chief, probably to answer those. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner, I might come back and make sure I hit all of your questions. So the first one had to do with, I think, relationships and being able to respond into areas that are pretty remote, definitely have access issues. Again, from the perspective that both the hat I wear as the op area coordinator, that's the operational area coordinator for the county, as well as the Region 2 coordinator for Cal OES, and the fact that we work alongside CAL FIRE today. Again, we have in the current Central Fire Protection District 132 square miles, of which 65% is rural mountainous area. So what we utilize is training ahead of it. We have a 3-day wildfire, countywide wildfire drill that will be coming up. We use tools, which is technology tools, to enable us to get to the calls. We utilize emerging technology that I know the Board of Supervisors are definitely driving with regard to wildfire cameras and access. So when it comes to being able to respond quickly to wildfire, there is no doubt about it that CAL FIRE does an excellent job. I want to make it very clear that that is what they do extremely well. When we work alongside CAL FIRE, there is a state responsibility that they have to protect the watershed, and then there's a district responsibility that we have for the all-risk mission. Within South County Fire District, there is a strip pretty much along 101 that's local responsibility area that would not necessarily garner CAL FIRE, but I would assume that I could call for help just like I can up north today. So if I deemed the weather conditions prior to, again, working through operations, the operations chiefs and the BCs that are working, that something like LA that occurred, and again, I want to remind everybody, those were 70 mile an hour sustained winds with 90 mile an hour gusts. Those were extremely extraordinary weather circumstances that really fueled the Palisades fire, that we would be on a call ahead of time. We would coordinate that ahead of time. When it comes to, again, that's kind of answering both in terms of how we get to calls and then maintaining that collaborative relationship. Again, I understand that there may be the optics that we're on opposite sides, but I have full belief that the boots on the ground understand and will respond collaboratively with each other for any incident that's occurring within the county. You had asked, I'm sorry, Commissioner, a question about, I missed a couple of them.
Sure. No, I fired them off, so
It's
I apologize.
okay.
They talked about about lack of loss of institutional knowledge, and if they're building relationships on the ground, that they're hoping you can hire from local talent that already have a relationship with the agency and know the interface.
So a couple of things with regard to institutional knowledge that I do want to point out without being too overly, I don't want to say general, but a good portion of the current workforce that works for Central Fire Protection District lives in South County. So there are folks that day to day probably know that area better than, I mean, just from the institutional knowledge from growing up there. So I don't necessarily believe that we have a space where we would be behind the curve. I think we would want to turn to CAL FIRE as our partners to help us through the transition. To that again, that's sort of what we did when we left Morgan Hill, and I hope that that is the mantra that we work through operationally. And I do want to address, like, for the plan of service, where I know Chief Hess mentioned that, you know, CAL FIRE was mentioned multiple times. That plan of service information was taken from the latest fire service review. That was a document that took a long time to put forth, and each fire chief had an opportunity to weigh in and discuss what the priorities of the organization was, discuss what some goals and objectives are, and ultimately, really what's in that document is how the organization works today, and that organization was published in 2023. So we took information from that document, so if there is information that is not accurate, I apologize, but that was the foundation document that we utilized to bring that plan of service, or to build to work off of from the foundation for our plan of service. So for open space, again, we work with those partners up north. Again, a lot of area that we have up in the northern part is in the open space. We work with Mid-Penn, we work with county parks, and we anticipate doing the same down in South County.
Thank you. So I feel hopeful with the signs of collaboration between CAL FIRE, our agency, and in your special district as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And you know, I want to thank everyone for their comments. I know that there is a bit of a question about the impact that this would have on the other municipalities. But South County Fire District is meant for the unincorporated areas, which means the burden is on those residents that live in unincorporated areas, and we're not here to make decisions to the benefit of other cities or other municipalities, but those who are living and residing in those unincorporated areas who would then benefit from the fire service here. And as much as I want to be cooperative, collaborative, and I will be, the South County Fire District doesn't cover cities, covers unincorporated areas. And that is at the helm of this, because as much as, you know, we want to scratch, there isn't any more taxes, any more revenue that this unincorporated South County District can come up with unless we tax folks. And that kind of special tax, like I said, it didn't work in the city of Gilroy. I would venture to say it wouldn't work in the city of San Jose, maybe even, right? I think people are hurting in terms of inflation costs and high cost of living. And this is, I think, the only way to really save South County Fire District from insolvency. Because the county of Santa Clara has already subsidized a fire district that should be standing on its own. And I don't know that I could continue to go back to my colleagues as a board member and say, let's dip in from the general fund to continue to hold up a system that is already collapsed, because the county fixed the roof, the leaky roof. I didn't see any other city or municipality coming in and saying, hey, let me fix that with you. let's come up with from our coffers, our general fund money, and contribute to that in anticipation. These issues have been plaguing the district for a really long time. And so this is a decision that is not easy. It certainly is not easy, and it's not meant to reflect performance for any particular group, and it's certainly not for CAL FIRE. It has never, ever been about CAL FIRE and the level of service that they provide. I have always publicly said I respect CAL FIRE. I'm grateful for the service that they provide. This is really about the insolvency of this fire district. And I want to once again ask Mr. Williams, can you commit to not just negotiating with the city of Morgan Hill, but collaborating with them to make sure that we have an outcome that works for both?
We absolutely look forward to collaborating with Morgan Hill, and I would add Gilroy to the mix too.
Yes, please.
The reality is so many services, whether it's fire protection, emergency medical response, but so many other critical services in the southern part of our county have deep interconnectedness. And so it's very important for all of the jurisdictions to be looking at resources in a collaborative manner and to ensure that there's close and seamless coordination to the greatest extent possible. What's exciting about this opportunity with the reorganization is, and I want to come back to that because I think in the midst of all the other discussion that can get lost, but what's exciting about it is this is a way of actually bringing some much needed additional resources in to that part of our county to help stabilize the provision of these essential services. And that's why we brought this item forward first to the Board of Supervisors with enthusiasm and bring it in front of the commission likewise, because that's our commitment as a county administration in looking not as part of County Fire or the South County District or anyone else, but looking at the broader picture of what this means for service to all of the residents that we have an obligation to serve, whether they're the specific residents in the unincorporated territory governed by the South County District, or the residents that we serve in the cities of Morgan Hill and Gilroy, or the residents that we serve elsewhere throughout Santa Clara County.
I appreciate that, and I'm grateful for that response. I want to make sure that the commissioners know that this is a reorganization that is meant to create viability, sustainability for this fire district. It is not a choice or is not meant to be based on a choice of performance. Otherwise, if it was a choice of performance, that we could do something like an RFP, like you suggested, Commissioner Lee. I think it was you. I apologize if it wasn't. Oh, so sorry. It wasn't you. I'm so sorry. See, I should just say, as mentioned previously. As mentioned previously, somebody said, could we actually release an RFP and have this go to bid, right? But it isn't a matter of performance in terms of the fire service. What it is at the center of this is the solvency and the sustainability of the fire district. And because we could release an RFP, once again, if technically we would be allowed to, but the fact remains the same amount of money is generated by this very, very small tax base that is in unincorporated areas. And unless other municipalities would say, hey, you know what, let me pitch in $1 million every year or whatever it was so that we could have some shared cost and this could remain the same. But that I don't think is a realistic option. Here we are talking about the sustainability for the fire district, not the performance of who's providing it. And so I'm really sorry that I think some folks have gotten this wrong, especially online in terms of misinformation, because this has never been, and I want to publicly say it's never been about the performance of CAL FIRE. Absolutely not. This has been about providing fire service in a sustainable way, because as a board member, I don't know that I can continue to go to my board members and say, hey, we need to sustain South County Fire District with general fund money. And we, the county, only are focused on safety net services. We don't provide fire service. That's not within our purview to do. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure I clarified this, because I don't want this discussion to end without having publicly said that, because it's, and like I said, once again, it's never been about CAL FIRE's performance. I appreciate the service. I appreciate what they have done for the community and for the passion and service that you've provided. And I look forward to seeing how we can continue to provide, to work together with the Amador Agreement. And you will continue to provide fire service, wildfire service to our area, just like you do in any other part of the state. And hopefully our partnership will continue to exist.
Chair, can I call for the vote?
Chair, excuse me, but Commissioner Kamei, who's participating
Oh, I'm so
remotely,
sorry.
has raised her hand.
Oh, of course. Commissioner Kamei, please.
I'll be. Can you guys hear me? I'll be very brief. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all the speakers today, as well as all those who submitted their letters and emails and comments. I know this is a critically important issue for South County. As a person who lived in Morgan Hill for over 25 years, I know how important this is. And I also want to thank staff for the briefings and the information provided on this item. Public safety is number one, and South County deserves great services. And I think that it also needs to address the structural issues of insolvencies. And as has been already mentioned, this is not about, quote unquote, saving money or, it's really about having a plan for service for South County and to be able to serve South County. So I hope that at the end of the day, my questions had already been asked previously, but I do hope that that we're able to continue the collaboration and provide South County with the services that it really deserves. And if it were to go down and not have this dissolution, it would be very, very, I feel that it would be very dire and have lack of services. So as someone who is now in the city of San Jose, I'm more than happy to share in, the tax dollars that I have to be able to assist other areas. So I'm hoping that this will go through. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will ask for the vote, call for the vote, because I think I did hear. Oh, so sorry.
I think we have, yeah.
Oh, I apologize. I can't see there is no, sorry, there is no light. I apologize, Commissioner O'Neill. It isn't working, but I think you can kind of scoot the other one.
Okay. Thank you very much, and I really appreciate the comments about that the highest priority has to be the services and the safety of all the residents in the South County area. But I'm also very cognizant of the comments, appreciate the comments made by Chair Ennis about the fiscal sustainability. So I perhaps should know more about this than I do, but so I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. So one of the benefits that appears to be of this consolidation is that Central Fire District appears to be in a comparatively robust financial situation compared to the South County Fire District. So are any of those funds that are in the Central Fire District, are they subject to any kind of potential clawback by the county? I realize that there are some special taxes and things like that, but are those funds secured within the fire district? And say, as we face uncertain financial times going forward, if it seems like we have incredibly capable staff at Central Fire, but if they're not able to generate enough funds say in a few years, and such that the reserves are declining, or that just if revenues go down, would the plan be that the whole district would share proportionately if there needed to be changes in level of service, or would the fact that South County, this particular area, is more susceptible to wildfire, would that enter into how Central Fire would provide services? So I just, as a clarification, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Happy to answer those questions. So the Central Fire Protection District, like the other fire districts in our county, there's 4 of them right now, derives almost all of its revenue from local property tax, from its share of the 1% tax. Now, Central Fire's territory has a much more robust tax base than the South County District for a variety of reasons, but predominantly because the assessed valuation is so different, right, in that part of the county. And in part, that's because of choices related to development activity, where development activity, of course, as this commission knows better than anyone, is steered into incorporated areas, and the Central Fire District covers incorporated areas, whereas the South County District, it does not. And so that's one piece of things as well. So the other thing I would add is that the Central Fire District is very capably managed fiscally and has a very conservative approach to its budgeting. That's reflected in its balance sheet, which does have significant reserves. It is an independent fiscal entity from the county organization. So to specifically answer that question, there is not a commingling of funds between the county organization and any of the fire districts. They're all separate funds. They're all separately accounted for. Those funds that are allocated to the Central Fire District from its share of property tax are for the exclusive use of the Central Fire District for its mission and purposes, and are not used and utilized by the county organization for any other purpose.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and vote on the item. I'm sorry?
Roll call.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought I said that. Apologize.
Commissioner Bell? Commissioner Kamei?
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman?
Aye.
Commissioner Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Trumbull?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
No.
Chairperson Arenas?
Yes.
Madam Chair, there are 6 in support of the motion and 1 opposed.
Thank you. I appreciate. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Williams. I appreciate that. Okay, we are going to move on to item number 6, and this is the proposed work plan and budget for fiscal year 2026. And as you can see in your agenda, the recommended action is to adopt the work plan, adopt the proposed budget for fiscal year, find the proposed budget for fiscal year is expected to be adequate, and authorize staff to transmit the proposed budget adopted by the commission. And we'll take just a couple of minutes as people are exiting so that Okay, I'm going to ask if you could please take your conversations outside of the chambers. I truly appreciate that. Wonderful. Okay, so item number 6, do we have a presentation or update?
Yes, I just want to say that the LAFCO Finance Committee, composed of alternate commissioners Campos, Chapman, and O'Neill, met on March 6th to review the proposed work plan and budget recommendations for fiscal year 2026. The proposed work plan is recommended by the Finance Committee, is included in Attachment C, and it's very similar to this year's framework and includes 6 major areas of work, including LAFCO application processing, including policy review development, implementation of LAFCO's island annexation program, service reviews in special districts, outreach, customer service and government, community relations, commission support, and administrative projects. The proposed budget as recommended by the Finance Committee is included in Attachment D. One thing to note is that the proposed fiscal year 2026 expenditures are 14% higher than the current year budgeted expenses, and this increase in expenditures is largely due to the increase in the cost of salaries and benefits due to the analyst position promotion that occurred in August 2024. And the proposed net operating expenses are approximately 26% higher than the current year's budgeted net operating expenses. And again, the primary reason for this is because the fund balance at the end of this year is at its lowest level in years. Since September 2023, LAFCO office has been fully staffed with 4 full-time employees and has not benefited from salary savings that we have realized in previous years. Over the past 2 years, we have adopted more precise budgeting practices as well. And as a result of all of that, year-end fund balances have been significantly smaller, and this translates to a trend for rising operating expenses. So the estimated costs to the agencies are detailed in Attachment E. Lastly, I'd like to thank the Finance Committee members for their time and thoughtful review of the work plan and the budget. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'm going to go to public comment first to see if we have anybody in person or online.
There are no requests to speak, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to go to my colleagues and Commissioner Trumbull. Oh, no, that's the light. That's, you know what? Today I am having trouble with lights. So I apologize to anybody if I haven't caught it. Commissioner Lee, is your light on? It's so hard to, on this side, oh, you know what, because it has a little red on the top. Okay, so I will go ahead and I'm looking this way. So please, if anybody has any questions, please just raise their hand. If I happen not to see you, I apologize. All right, so I'm going to ask, thank you so much for the work plan. I was looking at, I think, under the status of current year work plan, I noticed that the 2018 workshop on LAFCO communications and outreach plan is still marked as TBD, and wasn't sure what that one was about. I don't know if 2018 marks, it has a demarcation of something that kind of changed. Oh, okay. So, oh, you see it. Mm-hmm.
Is this on page 5 of 7 of the status of current work
Yeah,
plan?
I'm looking at it because I had it on, and for some reason I can't find it anymore. Yes, page 5 of attachment A.
Page 5, yes, so it's the conduct a strategic planning workshop. The last time we did a strategic planning workshop was back in 2018. And that's what we said over there, and we haven't, it's, at this point, we had identified that as a low priority, and we haven't determined a date for a future strategic planning workshop.
Okay, well, I would love to see what we can do to get that into play, because I know that there's, and this is, this falls under, so sorry. This falls under the commission's support, but under the administrative projects, I know that I'd love to, and I think we've talked about this on the dais last year, to have a proactive policy development for Santa Clara LAFCO staff, similar to the kind of innovative approaches San Diego LAFCO has taken on issues like environmental justice and the agricultural worker housing that we did last year. I know that in the Cal LAFCO workshop, you did some really wonderful work in introducing environmental justice into the conversation. But it leaves it kind of hanging, if you will, the items, and I'd love for some of that innovation that is brought into the conference to be brought back into this conversation to figure out how do we do that. And so I think it ties in really nicely with the strategic planning workshop. And so as we strategically plan, we can take a look at how we can be more proactive on policy development and bringing back some of what we learned from Cal LAFCO and what other LAFCOs throughout the state are doing, and what the appetite is really for the board to figure out, do we want to pursue more of the environmental aspect into our strategic planning, and build it in a way that is meaningful and kind of fall in line with maybe what other folks are doing. I'd love to hear thoughts from other of my members, my colleagues. Anyone? All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the item, and then to also include either, I think under this, it could fall under the strategic planning workshop, because I think having proactive policy development is a strategic planning direction, but we can also have it under administrative projects. So, I'll leave it up to you, Nalima, to figure out if you want to do this under administrative projects or under commission support. Because I think it is a really good time for us as we are reviewing our policies, updating them, figuring out strategically the direction, if there's any innovation in terms of direction that we want to take in our strategic planning workshop. But we need a workshop first to figure out whether that's something that we want to do collectively. So for the moment, I will ask you the motion will be to approve the item and include under administrative projects a focus on proactive policy development for Santa Clara LAFCO, similar to the other innovative approaches, like I mentioned in San Diego. And that is my motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Do you have feedback, Nalima, in terms of?
No, I'm happy to add that to the work plan, specifically focused on environmental justice policies. This is when we did a strategic planning workshop back in 2018, that the topic of conversation at that time was communications and public outreach. So this time around, it's great to have a focus and work towards developing policies related to environmental justice.
Well, wonderful. I know that it's something I think that was clearly a passion area, as we saw in California LAFCO, and for those of us who attended, it was just a really fascinating. I think we got a lot of feedback from that workshop, and Nalima was leading on that. And I think sometimes LAFCOs, we need a little funk, we need a little change. We need to make sure that we fall into line with what people are prioritizing within their own municipalities. And I know environment is really important to many folks. So anyways, Emmanuel, we can call the vote, please.
Commissioner Bell? Aye. Commissioner Kamei?
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman?
Aye.
Commissioner Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Trumbull?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairperson Arenas?
Yes, sir.
So, it's unanimous, Madam Chair.
Perfect, thank you so much. We are going to move to item 7. And item 7 is the proposed work plan, Phase 2, comprehensive review and update of LAFCO policies. And Nilima, do you have an update for us?
Yes, I'll keep it very brief. As you know, we completed Phase 1 of our policies update, and we'd like to move forward with Phase 2, finishing up our update of the remaining policies that deal with LAFCO applications and administrative functions that LAFCO has. So staff today has provided a draft work plan, and we're requesting that the commission approve that work plan and provide direction as necessary. The work plan has us bringing back a couple policies for the commission's consideration in August. So looking for your support today. Thank you. And happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to ask for public comment and see if there's anybody online. No, nobody. Okay. I'm really surprised because this is a good one, guys. This is our Phase 2 of our update of LAFCO policies. We were absolutely innovative in the Phase 1 as we all heard about our policies for the very first time written down. And largely, and thank you to Nalima, Amala, just to everyone on the team. And this is Phase 2, and I think for the first time, for the first phase, we had an ad hoc committee, and Commissioner Chapman was on there, and former Commissioner Melton and Chair was on there as well, leading the charge. It would be wonderful to see this Phase 2. I'm looking forward to hearing about it in our August hearing, but I'm wondering if we could bring it back a little earlier just so that we can check in. Just a little bit of a refresher, and not wait exactly until August to hear about this once again before we all forget that we did Phase 1 and now we're doing Phase 2. Does that work?
So are you recommending that we bring some of the policies back for the commission to consider in June, at the June meeting? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I want to make sure that the service review policies are reviewed a little bit more often. And so I was thinking that if we could hear about them, I don't know, in June, maybe, just as a refresher, so that by the time that it comes back in August, it's our second time hearing about them once again, just to keep it fresh. If my colleagues don't agree, I'm okay with waiting until August, but I just thought, let's not, we were really proactive about Phase 1. We got that done, and Phase 2 is kind of just lingering in the air, if you will. And so I was hoping to, before we forget what was in the air, that we bring it back and just here's a quick reminder of what we've done. This is what Phase 2 is going to bring back.
So in the staff report, we have a listing of the policies that are going to be part of Phase 2, and we have sort of identified some kind of a timeline for when we could bring back revisions to many of these policies. Most of the policies that are included in Phase 2 are administrative policies, and those just require staff time to put together and have review and bring them back for the commission. We don't believe that's that difficult to do, but we can bring those. There is one set of policies that are a little bit more substantive, and those are the service review policies that we want to take time and that we've been told to prioritize. And that's what we want to bring back in August for the commission to consider adoption of those policies. The last time we adopted the service review policies was back in, I think, 2001 or whatever. And since then, we've made a lot of changes in how we conduct service reviews, and we want to incorporate some of those practices that we've done, particularly with relation to public outreach and collaboration with stakeholder agencies and things like that, that are not included in the current service review policies that we have in place. So we want to incorporate that, and we want to incorporate also, we have this model for how we try to work with agencies after a service review report is adopted for implementing the recommendations that come out of the service review report. Again, that practice that we've had in place for many years now is not included in the current policy. And we want to incorporate those into that policy as well and bring them back to the commission so that it's transparent and available to the public. So that's the plan for this. We can definitely try to bring them back in June, but with everything else that we have on our plates for the June meeting or before the June meeting, we sort of gave ourselves time to bring it back in August.
Got it. Okay. I hear you. So what I'm hearing you say is you actually need that time between now and August to do the administrative review of the phase 2, which or the internal review of phase 2, which is more administrative review of the policies rather than having an ad hoc and coming together and reviewing that. And so I hear you. I'll go ahead and stick to the outline that you have for August. I just would venture to say that you might have commissioners who forget, who might, just like myself, speaking for myself, and it's always nice to kind of review things before we bring them back. But if that's what we're doing in August, then I will go ahead and respect that, and I'll have a motion for this work plan to get approved if someone will provide it.
So moved.
Wonderful.
Second.
Perfect. Okay, so we can go ahead and vote on that.
Commissioner Bell? Aye. Commissioner Kamei?
Aye.
Commissioner Chapman?
Aye.
Commissioner Lee?
Aye.
Commissioner Trumbull?
Yes.
Commissioner Thorner?
Yes.
Chairperson Arenas?
Yes.
7 votes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, we are moving on to our executive officers report. No, I'm sorry. Those are, yes, those are under consent. This is commissioner's report. This is item 11. Commissioner Bell?
Okay, Commissioner
Oh.
Bell is raising his hand.
Commissioner Bell?
You want me to talk now?
Yes. I always want you to talk.
Well, it's kind of emotional for me. For 10 years, I served on the Board of Supervisors with a rough, tough gentleman who turned out to be a legislative partner, a friend, and an ally in achieving some of the strategic goals, and his name was, Big Donnie. And Donnie Gage. And I just want to say, being here, I really miss Donnie and loved working with him, loved him giving me put-down jokes, working on things like the health and hospital master plan and providing foster care for kids, providing good quality housing for people. We both suffered in our lives for lack of having housing, so we had like a common interest in that. We care deeply about families and children, so he was very insistent that they approved health center in Gilroy. So Donnie was very insistent on that. Just like working with all his colleagues, and it was always, didn't always agree, but always had a respectful and gentlemanly attitude about it. And he also worked very hard. He was a hardworking guy. He enjoyed work, so did I. And we had a lot of good times working together on just a whole variety of issues over the 10 years we served together. So I just wanted to say that. Just being in the room here. My 12 years on the board, Don's, I think he served 12 too. So we worked over, our overlap was about 10 years. So I just wanted to say that about Donnie. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Chapman.
Well, I also want to share some sad news as well, is that former director Mike Flauher passed away in February. He served our commission for 10 years. So we just did a resolution for him on last Thursday, and I believe the Board of Supervisors and the City of San Jose is also going to be adjourning in his honor. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, following in your footsteps here in terms of adjourning, we have also a member of our public that passed away. Kanta had suffered from Kiatan had suffered from cancer for many years, and she led a lot of Diwali celebrations. She was an older resident of ours who just could brighten your day, and I'm really gonna miss her, and hope to adjourn in her honor. I know that there's folks who come into our lives who just brighten up our days, and not only that, but they give of themselves, like you both have mentioned, and of Don Gage. I'm absolutely grateful of all of that he has offered South County specifically. And so I think there's great loss when those wonderful souls are not connected to our earth anymore. So anyways, and this is for Kanta, and we'll go ahead and adjourn in her honor. All right, I'm going to move on to newspaper articles and newsletters, if there's anybody who has something exciting to share to us. Okay, and then so I'm going to move on to item 13, which is written correspondence.
We don't have anything either.
And it sounds like
No,
we don't have anything.
No.
So I'm going to move on to the most exciting item, which is item 14, which is adjourning this meeting and convening it. So we're going to adjourn to our regular LAFCO meeting on June 4th, 2025 at 1:15, same place, same time. We'll see you all soon. Thank you so much for today's service. I'm going to adjourn in Don Gage's honor. Would you like to collaborate with me?
Sure, I could tell you a lot of stuff about Donnie.
Well, I want you to come
Yeah,
when
yeah,
we adjourn,
yeah.
so you can do this.
The clinic down there was something that he was like, and he was for housing. He cared about it. I mean, I was like, oh, okay, you're a conservative guy, but you really want,
Well, you know what?